Friends, family, loved ones, enemies, contributors. This is Kevin Blueprint, and it's great to be back. I know I've been gone for a long time, um, practicing Ramadan, and it's good to be back. This week's show is called Assumed Guilt, and when I'm talking about assumed guilt, it's in contrast to the presumed innocence. And when we talk about presumed innocence, that's a legal principle in the United States of America, where it says that under the guise of you are innocent until proven guilty under the 14th, the 5th, and the 14th Amendments. And it is the burden of the prosecution to prove that someone is guilty. And I'm here to that that covers only 58% of America, which is the percentage of whites in America. 30%, 28 to 30% of America, the black and the brown population, doesn't fall under this principle. 28 to 30% of this country falls under a principle of assumed guilt. And when we are assumed guilt, the people of color, mainly the 13% black, is more so assumed guilty. I'm talking in the legal system or on including, I'm going to say, a day-to-day basis of occurrences and encounters or interactions. Guilt is assumed. So what's the difference between something that is presumed and something that is assumed? And this is something that I had to go look up like maybe a couple of months ago. I think I was doing something and I was maybe going to put presumed and I was like, is it assumed? Is it presumed? So I really didn't, understand or take into consideration that there's a difference between presume and assume. They sound alike. And what it is, when something is presumed, that means that you have reason to believe, evidence. Without actual proof, you have evidence or reason to believe something. What assumed is, and many of us have heard that phrase, when you assume, you make an ass out of you and me. What assumed is a guess. You're just guessing something without any proof or anything like that. So that's the difference between when you're presuming something and assuming something. Presuming, you have reason to believe. And this is why when I'm saying assumed guilt, I am purposely using that word as opposed to presumed innocence. Now, when we talk about things that occur in this country, and we're talking about equality and all these things like this is going to be what the conversation is about. We can postulate certain conclusions. And what postulate means, I mean, the definition that they give of postulate, to postulate something, they say is to suggest or assume, which I think it should be presume. But when you postulate, you can suggest or assume under their definition and take for granted, which is conclude in your conclusion based on knowledge, information, and logic. And when you talk about knowledge, information, and knowledge, that means that you're presuming something, because remember, when I say you presume, you have reason to believe with evidence. So to me, I think the definition of postulate, when they say suggest or assume something, I think it should be presume, because you're using knowledge, information, and then using logic to come up with your conclusion. And we formulate this in what they call transitive properties. And when we talk about transition, transitive means things in sequence of transition. And I'm going to explain what I'm saying. I know it sounds like I'm talking and speaking a foreign language to some, but a sequence and transition between objects or states. And this is going to make sense. The properties part is when you give value to something by identifying the participants of the components that you're in your equation or whatever you're using to translate to in a transitive sense. And I'll give you it's like an action takes place, then there's a reaction, then you can conclude from the action and the reaction. And especially when you're comparing different actions and reactions, you could come up with a conclusion. An example of that is in a transition, a girl kicks a ball. The ball travels so far or so fast and so far away. And you can also say a boy kicks the same ball and it went a further distance, quicker or higher, whatever. And then you can conclude from these two formulates because we formulated a transitive properties. We took a girl and a boy, and we could say, well, boys kick further than girls. Or, I mean, that's a presumption that you can make. That's why I say it's a presumption because you have data and information to back it up. Maybe she was not kicking it as hard. There's other things that you can include into your conclusion. You could say, well, I don't have enough information, but just based off the information that I have, if a boy kicked the ball and the girl kicked the same ball and it went further when the boy kicked it, then he must kick further. Or you could go further and say, well, maybe boys kick farther than girls. This is transitive properties of um, uh, addition, attraction, or attraction, or equality, whatever. You have different transitive properties to try to prove something, and you postulate it with calculations. So I'm saying all of this to say, when we talk about inequalities in this country, we can use postulates. We can use substitution postulates. This is what Black people normally do. A lot of times we do it without even using these terms that I'm talking about. We'll say, if that was a Black person, that person would be in jail in his encounter with the law enforcement. If that was a Black person, they would never have went into that house and shot the lady in the face. This is what we do all the time. We say we use these postulates, substitution postulates. That's what they're called. We will substitute an incident where we have the variables, we have the properties in it, the law enforcement, a white woman, and what happened with this encounter when that person, pushed the cop or pulled a weapon on the cop. And they end up taking that person down peacefully or without murdering them. And we'll say if that was a Black or a brown person, it would not have happened that way. This is a substitution postulate. We substitute in the incident between what happened with a white person, we substitute it with a person of color. And when we think or we conclude that it doesn't come out the same way, then that means there's not equality. You have transitive properties of equality and transitive properties of inequality with postulates with substitution, calculated with substitution postulates. And I hope I'm not, I know I'm stumbling, mumbling, but this is what I'm talking about. We can prove or come to conclusions that this country treats people differently based on information, knowledge, using logic, and evidence that we have found. To those that want to argue that, those type of things don't happen, those things, that's the way it used to be, that things have changed in this country. We can postulate with incidents as proof of what's happening in our community. We don't have to prove it to each other. Sometimes we do. We have those of us that want to argue with us about things are not as bad as we claim they are. We always want to use the race card. There's some of us that we have to argue with that, but mainly other people, that 58% of America, we have to A lot of them we have to have these discussions with to prove that things are not just in this country. So I'm going to talk about the postulates and things like this. This is what I want to talk about, and we can how we conclude that everyone is not presumed innocence is through these transitive properties and these postulates. And therefore, if they're not presumed innocent, that means that everyone in this country is not treated equally. And therefore, there is inequality in this country, which many already know. But it seems like there's a pushback sometimes, even amongst ourselves, some of us. There's a pushback that we got to argue with some of us that has been brainwashed to think that everything is great in this country. And it is dependent on, I had one guy tell me, a good friend of mine, that it has nothing to do with race. It's all about money. And then what I can do, I can show him a postulate or a number of postulates of and examples of where a black person with money is not treated the same as a white person with money. Therefore, there can't be inequality. It can't be based. So what's the difference? What's the differentiation between the two incidents? If it's not the money, then you can't conclude that it's all about money. I'm not talking about a poor black person and a rich white person. I'm talking about two black people with money. One has privileges, and this is what we talk about when we talk about privileges a lot of times. And I'm gonna give y'all some examples that I'm talking about. Day-to-day occurrences that I went through, and all of us have these. I remember, and this is just the other day. I'm gonna talk about Friday. I already had this show in mind, but just to show that these things constantly occur on a day-to-day basis, I took my mom to the hospital to have a procedure done Friday morning. Now, I bring into account the way I was dressed. You know, I was dressed just like a lot of other people there. It ain't like everyone else that was at the hospital didn't have on shorts or t-shirts or whatever. Some people, you know, dressed a little better. Some dressed worse than I'm gonna say I was dressed. I think I was dressed pretty cool. I had on a Yankee jersey and a matching Yankee hat, matching shorts, and sneakers. I had already dropped my mom off. I'm sitting there waiting in the area. Then had to go back to my car, and I'm coming into the entrance of a hospital. Now, this young Hispanic lady, now she worked at the hospital. I don't know what her position was, if she is an RN or whatever, but she had scrubs on and she had a badge and all this. So she's coming out of the hospital through the doors, and I'm going in. As soon as she looked up and saw me, she clutched her purse. Now her purse was strapped around her shoulder. It wasn't just strapped on her arm or strapped across her. So for me to take her purse, I would have had to take it off of her head and snatch it in the environment, middle of the day, afternoon, early or late morning, all these people around. And I'm going to take that opportunity to try to snatch her purse, thinking that she has some valuables that I need. Cameras all over the place. But as soon as she saw me, that was her immediate reaction, to clutch her purse. And she kept walking. Now, that could be fine. But what comes to mind is the question, would she have done that no matter what man was walking, or if it was a man or and or whatnot? Would she have done the same thing? Is she doing that constantly whenever she sees a person or a man coming? Or did she look up and see me and immediate reaction was, let me grab my, she just was walking on when she grabbed her strap tight and like, okay, you're not. And we walked by each other. I greeted her and kept walking. And I kind of thought to myself, this is what I'm talking about on this show. The assumed guilt that I'm probably going to try to snatch her purse, no matter what the environment is. And that's fine. You could be protective of your valuables or whatnot. And I'm gonna bring another example up. Now, like I say, I was dressed in shorts, and she don't know who's going to try to snatch her purse. I give her that benefit. I was at work in work uniform, employment. I had two. I'm a technician with a major conglomerate company, and I had tools on my waist, and I stopped at lunchtime in a Walmart. Now I work in a rural area, so this wasn't in San Antonio. This was a smaller town. Not many black people, if any, maybe a couple in this town. Very rare to see us. Even when we see each other, we kind of wow. Um, I walk into a Walmart and I'm talking to one of my homeboys on my Bluetooth, and I'm walking into the Walmart. Then I'm going to go into a Subway, pick up something to eat, a sandwich. Soon as I walk in, even though I'm in full uniform, tools and everything, it's a lady, older white lady, elderly white woman sitting at the table facing the entrance. Soon as I walk in, her first reaction, she had her purse on the chair. This was more deliberate. She was eating her sandwich. Then she saw me and she grabbed her purse off of the chair as I walked by, and I kind of smirked and I was like, wow. And I'm telling my friend what just happened. I'm like, man, you wouldn't believe this. Like, as if your purse is more important than my employment. That I can't help myself, that I will get fired from my job, risking my whole job to try to snatch your purse, and you may only have $20 in your purse. And there's cameras throughout Walmart parking lot, everything. So whatever vehicle I was trying to get up, I mean, it doesn't make sense, but it was an initial reaction, her immediate reaction. As soon as she saw me, she rushed and she grabbed her purse. So this tells me the mentality that a lot of people have without even thinking. It was a reaction. So why is it like that? And I submit that people have information. Do I blame the individual? This is a question that I have. I also asked the question. I don't know if you're able to see it. This is the first time I did a poll. I asked if, as a person of color, and I want to add into that a person of um, a woman, a person of color, do you feel that you have your job if you're working? Do you feel like you are a DEI hire? And I do want to know. I don't know how I'm gonna look at the polls because I never did a poll while I was doing the show. But I just want to know. You could comment yes, no, maybe so, whatever. But that was the question that I had. Do you believe, as a person of color or a woman, that you are a DEI hire or whatever, sexual, you know, identity, whatever you have, that you think that you are not a white man? Do you believe that you are a DEI hire? And I'm going to go back to that. And you could put yes, no in the comments. I don't know how the poll is. I don't know how I'm going to go to the poll. I look on there so far. I don't see, I don't know, but if y'all want to just ask the question, answer the question or whatnot. But so what I was getting at, going back, um, do you blame the individual? Should you hold it against the individuals with these type of reactions? And this is not something that they have thought about in their mind, like, oh, this guy is coming from, 50 feet away. Let me cross the street. It's not a calculated thing. And, you don't know the person, or I can identify different things about the person. This is something that was immediate reaction. As soon as you saw me, you did it. And this is what I'm going to say. I question if you would have did it if it was a white person walking in. And I doubt it, because I think women will be doing that all the time. And we've always said this for a long time. You walk by, people will lock their doors, or you hear them hit the door, like the lock button on if it's electronic. This is something that people have always said, people of white people do when a black person, a Hispanic person comes into an elevator, they clutch their purse or whatever. Or maybe that's something that you can see visibly. Maybe they have a heightened sense of fear that you can't see. Then maybe they're nervous. So do you hold those individuals in these circumstances? Do you hold them um, accountable for that? Especially if it's a systemic issue. And this is what I mean by that. I'm going to add this into there. If they're tainted, they have a reaction. And if their knowledge is tainted, their information is tainted, does that not um, taint their logic that they're using? And if that's so, then why would you blame the individual? Their logic can be corrupted by biases, things that corrupt your logic or the way you value looking at a situation and breaking down a situation. It could be tainted by biases that you have in yourself. Some people could be chauvinistic. Okay, the girl kicked the ball and the ball went this far. The boy kicked the ball and it went further. And you may conclude saying that, oh, well, boys are stronger than girls or better at doing this than girls. So, of course, that happens. The reason it went further is because boys are better at doing this than girls. Or maybe she was just playing and wasn't trying to kick it that hard. Or maybe when she kicked it, there was other factors. Maybe the wind was blowing towards her and it prohibited the ball from traveling as far. And maybe he was wind aided or whatever the situation was. These biases now, you're not calculating all this, but you just immediately see boy, girl, he should be, you know, he should do it better. And I'm gonna take the physicality out of it. If it was something else that they did, he scored higher on his test, or she scored higher on her test. Yeah, well, girls are smarter than boys, or girls supposed to be doing this type of stuff, and boys are not. I mean, you have these biases within you that will help you conclude something that may not actually be so because you're not looking at all the information, or you may not have all the information. Sometimes people are sexist, they're chauvinist, sometimes they're prejudiced or they're bigoted. So that would taint their conclusions. But there's a reason why many people may exude these type of qualities in themselves. And I'm submitting to you that in a systemic system that feeds and breeds these type of things into people, maybe it's not really their fault. This is what they are a victim of it themselves, of being biased. We have two things. I'm gonna always hammer these things in because I think these things play a big part in our day-to-day lives. We have availability biases. Availability biases is something that's normal within the frame of mind of a person that you think of. You think the way that you are exposed to things. What you are exposed to the most is going to slant the way you think about things. If you have had encounters with dogs and you've every time or say like you may have 100 encounters with some people's pet, and 10 of those times you may have been attacked or the dog tried to attack you, and maybe one time you was attacked. That's going to uh, change the way you see dogs, as opposed to someone whose every encounter or most of the encounters they had was friendly encounters with dogs. That's the information that's available to them, and they are biased on the information that's sometimes you are biased on what's available to you, the information that's available to you. And you're not looking at the whole situation. You may hear about other people being attacked, and you should always take that into account. Just because it didn't happen to me doesn't mean that it doesn't happen as often or to other people. You're going to say, well, maybe that person did something wrong, or whatever happened. People do that with police encounters. Maybe they should have just obeyed. When I get stopped, if you just obey the law, things don't happen. And every time these other people have encountered police stops or tickets or whatever, the police wasn't aggressive like that, and they may attribute that because, hey, I had a nice, calm demeanor. Someone else that's watching other people that look like them get murdered, and you have all these anxieties and fears about you being stopped, and you're nervous, and maybe that cop is more aggressive with you because he have these biases, he have these prejudices. So these things have to be taken into account. These availability biases, that's normal. People react off of things that has happened to them or information that's available to them, whether it's happened to them or not. You watch TV shows. If you constantly watching TV shows, and whether they're fiction or this, factual thing, but all of the TV shows are showing black people acting a certain way, or about some of the shows that we watch about us. I know The Wire, excellent. I think that was probably the best series ever to me. And it's all about the hood, violence, even at the upper level. And it's not just about the hood. I digress on that. It was even at the mayor in the mayor's office. They had a black mayor, and he was doing things a certain way. They had black higher up people in the law enforcement, police chiefs, and things like this, and sergeants and the police officers were doing certain things. Even though they did show some white police officers doing things too, but a lot of it was about us, street level drug dealers and just murder. Every episode was all of this stuff. This would change the way you are, the information that you are privy to would change how you see some us, especially if you're not one of us. Now, if you go to any, I'm gonna say this: the top 10 countries in the world, most of them are Hispanic or Latin countries or whatever you want to say. And the reasoning, and I could look at that list and say, okay, a lot of these countries have drug cartels in it. And the reason a lot of these countries have all these drug cartels because a lot of them are poor countries. They're third world countries. So yeah, people when they're in poverty, if you look at poverty, period, you could take the worst side of town in any city. And if it's a black side of town, if it's the most impoverished side of town, you're going to have a higher crime rate. And if you go to another city or another section of town and it's brown, it's mostly Hispanic, Puerto Rican, or Mexican, they're going to have a higher crime rate than the rest of or any other middle class brown neighborhood. In the black lower class or most impoverished neighborhoods that you could think of, if there is another black neighborhood or community in that town that's middle class, the crime is not going to be the same. Therefore, it can't be the race of the people. It has to be the poverty. And this is what I concluded when I looked at the highest crime rates or the most dangerous countries in the world, the 10 most dangerous countries, and most of them had drug cartels by a third. When people want to start doing the drug thing and all of this stuff, that means they don't feel like they have options available to them. So they're going through extremes. And with that lifestyle comes danger, violence. You have to protect what you're doing against other people that's doing the same thing. So is it a racial thing? And it may be because maybe that's what's keeping us in poverty. But I'm saying you have to look at the impoverished situation because a white neighborhood that's impoverished, trailer homes, they're going to have more crime things happen. They're going to have in a well-off neighborhood that's white, that's predominantly white. That's logically thinking. That's taking information, knowledge, and using it logically. That's to suggest or presume taking for granted and concluding something based on knowledge, info, and using logic to do it. That's what we postulate. And that's what we should postulate. I'm going to say that because sometime when we have these, if the information that you have is slanted and is purposely slanted because it's a systemically racist system that purposely slants negativity about a certain culture or a certain race, or certain races, then yeah, people are going to look at that information that they're being privy to that's always on the news. That's going to play a part in how they look at you. It's going to devalue the properties in a transitive property equation. The properties, the ones that you're identifying as the participants, the individual components, if the information that you have on them is slanted or you're getting bombarded with negativity, you're going to see them as a certain way. And sometimes people say, oh, well, they are prejudiced. These prejudices arise because they're produced by the biases that you have and the information and the availability biases that you have. You'll see the news always talking where they'll put a label. A Hispanic man did this, a black man did this, you know, black on black crime is terms that they use that never was used with any other race. So when you only do it with one race, that shows inequality. And I saw Charlie Kirk, one of his debates, and he had a black person, and he was throwing out all these, yeah, black people, they make up this much of the population. And a lot of the stuff that he's talking about is false anyway. A lot of his, when you go back and look at it, white people commit more crimes, but then you look at too, black people are more impoverished than white people, period. So if you want to look at the crime rates, you got to do it, look at a middle class black community and look at a middle class white community, and then tell me the crime rates. That's when you can actually show me, but you're not using all of the information that's available. You're slanting the information. So when you talk about, well, blacks commit this much crime, then let's look at the totality of what's happening in America. You could tell me Hispanic countries are the most dangerous. Yeah, but look at what's happening in the world on a world um, instance, or let me know what's happening. Don't tell me just, oh, Hispanic, as if then you can conclude that Hispanics are more dangerous than, because it's not 10 African countries on that list, but it could be, because the same thing that's happening to the brown countries is happening to the African countries, but you take away the cartels. So when you're just throwing out or spewing out statistics and you're trying to slant the way people see things, then what happens in this Charlie Kirk incident, he's talking to a black person and he said, what the guy saying, where'd you get these statistics? He said, look it up. And he looks up crimes in Chicago. And he's like, wow, he's blown away. And people start laughing. It's a black guy looking up, and Charlie Kirk made him look stupid. But if you are using logic, there's more layers to it than just looking up statistics and data. You have a history in this country. Black people have gone through and white people have not gone through. And this is what I'm saying. So you have these availability biases that's tainting your logic and bringing a lot of false information in. So your availability biases is going to have you thinking a certain way about a certain people. Then what comes with that is confirmation biases. Once you start believing a certain thing, confirmation biases, and this is something that happens in the system knows this. They have people that's been doing this for a long time. They have doctors, psychologists, and everything that has been doing this for a long time. What confirmation biases come from is like anything that could get you to believe, or anything that you already believe to be true. Any new information that you are come across, the things that confirm your beliefs are going to weigh heavier than the things that don't. And we sit here in this country, we talking about Trump supporters and all this stuff. No matter what they hear, the things that they want to hear is going to weigh more in their mind and their psyche than the things that's negative. And others that don't believe all these things, that if you're being neutral and you're just saying, look at this, how can y'all still be in the dark? But a confirmation bias is a psychological thing that whatever you believe, when those things come across you, whether it's positive in somebody or a situation or a country or whatever it is, you're going to look at those things. You're going to get all this information, and those things are going to weigh more to you than the things that go against what you believe or what you want to believe. If it's negative about a certain group and you hear this news, you're going to hear a positive thing. I posted something, I think yesterday, a black kid in Iowa jumped in a frozen lake, I think to save an old man and his dog. They're going to see that same news feed. I took that, I posted it. That's positive, man. That's amazing. Even if it was, I don't care if it's a brown kid, a white kid, an Asian kid, that's something, you 18 years old and you see somebody out on a lake, with the ice fishing with a vehicle. I mean, why would somebody have a vehicle on a frozen lake, heavy as that is, but it busted, the ice broke and the vehicle started going underwater. He ran out there. He jumped in. He saved the dog first. He went back in trying to get the man out. Other people came. He couldn't get the man out the seatbelt. They gave him a knife. He went back in the cold, freezing cold weather. risking his life. Cut the seatbelt out, got to help, got the guy out, help save their life. Somebody could see that same thing and have think negativity about black kids and black people, period. And it's going to be another article about black kids doing something or a black kid robbing, and that's going to weigh more to them than this positive thing, that article that they just read, because this confirms what they all already believe. And they may see both incidents, but one is going to stick to them because that's a confirmation bias that happens to people on a normal basis. The system knows this. So when they get you to believe a certain way, or they're raising you to believe a certain way, or they're stripping away all the positivity that black people or brown people has contributed to this nation throughout the centuries, and all the innovations and inventions that they have come up with, and all the good things that they did, or the bad things that happened to them. If you don't want to hear it, you're going to hear it, but it's not going to impact you as much as the negativity that you want to believe or that you have believed in. And that's what confirmation biases is. And that's what I always submit to people. I always submit to people. You have to understand what's psychologically happening to not only you, but to the other side too, that's looking at you in a certain way. Just like we are not learning our history, they are not learning your history either. It is easy for them to be manipulated into believing that you don't have the worth and the value that you actually did contribute to this nation. And that it's easier for them to believe that you want handouts, and it's easier for the system to convince them that you want handouts. And then when one thing happens, or a few things happen that we shake our head at with our people, they're gonna magnify that. It's gonna be magnified to a whole different level. Those are things that psychologically plays a part when we postulate what's happening to people's country on a day-to-day basis. When you have differences in races and things like this, or women and men and things like that, you use logic, and sometimes the logic is tainted and has been contaminated, and therefore the conclusion comes up contaminated. And this is even happens to us. This is how good that is. They notice that even when they strip away and they bombard us with negativity about ourselves, and they exclude all the remarkable things that we have done in America, and I'm just talking about in America, and they excluded, then a lot of the things that come across here is a lot harder for us. We look at the news, see a shooting that they will report, and sometimes they do it with sides of towns. And this is all comes into it. They'll say this happened on the east side. Sometimes people say that's not really the east side, but this did happen, this incident. But what they want to do on the other side, they want to put the negativity of the east side into it. And that may be something that happened on the northeast side, where it's not as many blacks, or people don't even think of it as like that. Or they don't even give a side of town when it happens on a white side of town. They just give the area in the street. And then we'll be thinking like, where's that at? And because we're thinking that because it's not our side of town. And they didn't say it happened on the far north side or the far northwest side, where a lot of white people may live. Man shoots himself, or shoots his wife and kills himself, or shoots his wife, shoots his kids and kills himself. Then all they do is just give a street. And we have to say, man, where's that at? But you best believe when it's on the west side in San Antonio, east side in San Antonio, southeast side, San Antonio, we know, okay, yeah, that happened there, because they're going to tell you on the southeast side. This is information, this is availability biases that they're using, and that breeds confirmation biases, because everyone that's hearing that, and even ourselves, we're like, yeah, damn east side, it must be us. And even if it's not us, just them saying the east side. Our incident happened a couple of weeks ago. They didn't say who the participants was, but it actually ended up being a Hispanic neighbors. Dude shot both his neighbors, and as they said the east side. And it's like, okay, that's just another way of saying and directly saying probably black people. And that's what people was thinking till they saw, no, these are his Mexicans. And but if it happens someplace else, if it happened on the far north side, you best believe, even though they're not, it may be black did it, or it may be Mexican people that did it, they're just gonna say the street, and they're gonna say far, they're gonna give the county, the north side of, they're not gonna talk about the side of town because they don't want to diminish people's mindset about that side of town. That these type of things happen all over. And that's what I'm getting at with that. But then they even creeps into us. The confirmation biases that creeps into us. And this is why I try to combat the availability biases that I come across. I try to show positivity in a lot of things that I post with black people, or maybe even brown people, people of color. I try to combat what they do. We have those biases within us, and this is how we come up with these biases. I was having a conversation with somebody probably Friday, I believe, and we end up talking about um black people acting a certain way in establishments, customers or something. Then it goes into the conversation about um restaurants, black restaurants. I hate to say, and the person, and people always say, black people say, I hate to say it. If you hate to say it, why are you saying it? Why you say it so much? Black restaurants is this and that. Black restaurants is this and that. Black people that have restaurants, the quality of this, and I try to give them. I say, well, think of it like this: we have been owning. We're not as established as generation wise as owning businesses. You know, even though black people used to own businesses, we had a Black Wall Streets and all these things like this, but that has been torn down. And many of us don't come from parents that own their own businesses. Where other people, they have been owning their businesses for generations. So they have someone that could teach them about owning a business. They have some role models, all these type of things. Many of us that go out now say, I'm gonna own a business. It's just like a kid trying to walk. You're not gonna, if you haven't been walking a long time, you could tell. And this is what I try to submit to them. We are hard on us because we see us trying to do something. This is a first generation. And a lot of times when we're trying to start a business, it's not like we have $500,000 to spend. We're trying to do it to make money. So we're leasing this property, and we're trying to make money. We're hiring people, that we don't have to pay as much. We're not going to get the security from a security company. We're going to get the cost efficient things that we need to do it. And a lot of us don't have the experience. But I'm saying we're judging us against those people that have been doing this for generations. Or we're judging our black chicken place to Kentucky Fried Chicken and Church's Chicken and all these places that have, been around, and they have so many different stores, they're national brands and all of this. Well, we're this little mom and pop thing trying to make this stuff happen. And we have to look at things that's happening and not be so judgmental against our own. We have to use the logic and the information and the knowledge when we're judging things. But these confirmation biases, so when something happened negative with a black restaurant, it's gonna be like, yeah, see, and then you're gonna start talking about what happened with you with a black restaurant. This is confirmation, because all the positive things, you're not gonna sit up there and somebody say, man, I went to a black restaurant and this happened. And somebody's gonna come up and nobody's gonna say, well, you know what, I had a positive experience in this black restaurant, this black. No, you're gonna say, well, man, I had another one. I went to another one and they ran out of something. Or the girl was chewing gum or whatever. It's going to be something negative, and it's just the confirmation of negativity when you could have went to a white restaurant. You could have went to an Applebee's, and the black girl may have been working, but she was chewing gum. They didn't correct it. It could have been a white girl or a Hispanic girl, and see, you didn't even notice because you didn't care. That's the confirmation biases that has worked against us negatively. We see our own as negative. All the positive things that you could post about black people doing something positive, but when you see something, you're like, man, I hope it wasn't one of us. Man, you see what this food did, da 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 da. Or you're gonna They're going to keep posting the negative fights and all this stuff like this. Situations that they create the poverty. And then when you start acting like ghetto, then they're going to push the ghetto to the forefront. They're not going to go to the HBCUs and show all the kids that's graduating. They had us believing it was more black men in prison than it was in college. And that was nowhere close to the truth because we don't stop to think about and look at the statistics. So if that's the information that you was being fed and bred, then what you're going to do is every time something negative happens, they say, yeah, it's more black men incarcerated or in prison than it is in college. It's nowhere near. It's way more black men in college than it is in the prisons. But it's easy for us to believe that because we have these confirmation biases, even within ourselves, to where we don't value and trust ourselves as much as we value others, because that's what's been imprinted upon us. And so these prejudices happen even with us, and these biases happen even with us. Negative information would devalue the properties or the formulas that we want to use to postulate, or the transitive properties. When you already have it in your mind, black women are loud and aggressive. And if a woman has a reason to be loud, my child is, or you did this, you're going to look at that as that's just her personality. When another woman is being loud and she has reason to do it, or whether she has reason or not, you're going to say, well, maybe something is wrong. Like, well, can I help you? And they could be talking about the same thing in the same manner, but you're going to attribute this black woman as they're always loud or they're aggressive. When you see a black man, he's aggressive. He's a sexual deviant. He's violent. If that's what's projected constantly through the media, through the system, on the news, in our own TV shows, Power, Power 2, Power Book, whatever, all these things that we watch. And this is what is being projected. And even we creating it. 50 Cent doing all these things, documentaries, all these things like this. Negativity black, everything negativity black. Very few positivity black. The confirmation biases is going to start affecting the way people see you and how we see ourselves. This is what we must combat. That's what that tells me. So why would they not clutch their purse? If they sitting in their living room, watching Power and watching, all this violence and all this stuff like that, and even though they may see something positive, it's the confirmation part of it. It's going to be magnified and way more from just, even though it's fictional, that's what they're going to see. That's what they're going to believe. So do I blame her for clutching her purse when she see a black man? Am I going to blame the individual? Or am I going to logically look at the circumstances that's creating these reactions? It's a shame that these reactions exist. But it's more of a shame that it's a system that's promoting these reactions and they want these reactions to exist. So when the white person has these availability biases and confirmation biases, or even period, now when they're on a jury, they got to believe one story versus the next story. And they already have like I said, the negative information devalues the properties or the components. They got one person saying one story, the other person, they're going to value that other person's story more than yours. They're going to value the police recollection of what happened over yours, or the people that's around that say, no, that's not what happened. No, my friend Trayvon, he had his hand in the air and the cop shot him and this happened. You have his friend, well, he's friends. But if that was the other case, if you use a substitution postulate, would they have believed the friend that witnessed it? If that was white kids, if you change the races, that shows inequality. I remember an incident. I know I only got so much time. An incident happened. I'm gonna skip one because I'm running out of time. At my job, I had a Hispanic guy that I was cool with. He was one of the techs at my job, and he said something that came across about me being a single parent, having both my kids at home, raising both my kids. And he was like, wow, that's so rare. And many of us, I've heard that from us. And I asked him, he said, man, he said, that's rare. I said, it was rare for a black man to be loving his kids. And he like, yeah. I said, well, how many black men do you know? Um, he kind of stumbled. And I said, so why do you think it's so rare? If you're not in the black community, you're on the outside looking in. Where are you getting your information from? Now, if you're inside the black community, I can understand you saying that, but someone outside, how do you know if you're not in the black community? And he just, man, that's just rare for a black man to be caring for. That's how he said it, to be caring for his kids like that. And I said, okay. Now I hear that from other people too. But I hear from one of my friends, he's like, man, I know he said, I got about 4 or 5 friends that raise their kids. He said, I don't know where this perception comes from. I know where it comes from. He said, why people don't believe that. And I said, well, I think it's more rare, but the confirmation of it is you may hear it and you think that's a unicorn. You're not looking at all the instances. It doesn't weigh the same when you hear it happening as you hear the negativity, because negativity is pumped in our community and pumped in America, period. I hate to just say in our community because they pumping it to everybody. So everybody got these negative uh, perceptions of black people, period. Women, aggressive, loud, men, violent, sexual deviance, whatever. Um, so my thing is on the CDC data, May the 15th, 20, May the 12th, 2015, they had a article out about male involvement in single parent households with their kids. And black men was found to have more participation with their kids in situations that they got divorced. Black men versus white men and Hispanic men were more involved in it with their kids in a single parent household when the mother was the parent. This is what the CDC was showing. The CDC also was showing that there are more black fathers, single black fathers, than any other group per rate of the people. Now, when we talk about more, it's only 13% black people, and it's 50, almost 60% white people in this country. The numbers, but I'm talking about the rate of the people. It's more percentage of black men per capita of black people in this country raising their kids in a single parent household than it is white men and Hispanic men. This is what the statistics, the data shows. So when you take that data and you put that in a postulated formula, African American dad plus his children equals so much, and take the African American, you show white men plus his children without a wife in the household, and the data is telling you that black men are more involved, then why is it this connotation that black men don't care about their kids? And even to us, we will say that because that information will be shocking to us. But that's what the statistics show. And one more thing, I'm gonna go into something different now. The system and this government, they will hijack and redefine labels and words to fit their agenda. And I'm gonna give you 2 cases of things that happen with that. And the other one is what we're gonna talk about. One, the term woke. And if you look up wokeism, something that started, it's going to say it started in the black neighborhood. The term as being socially conscious of what's happening and to people when you're waking up. And they say wokeism refers to an active awareness of systemic uh, injustices, particularly regarding race, gender, now it's sexual orientation, awful aiming to dismantle perceived power structures. Originally meaning well informed in the black community. Originally, it meant being well informed. So if I read about Marcus Garvey, and I read about Malcolm X, and I read books about The Wretched of the Planet Earth by Frantz Fanon, Jim Crow, the new Jim Crow era. And all of these books like that. And I had all this information. I knew about Africa, and I'm reading about Anthony Browder's books and all these things, uh, Jack Diop and things like this. They'll say, "Dan, that brother's woke. He knows what's going on." That's how it used to be 15, 20 years, 10 years ago. I'm gonna say 10 years ago. But now they hijack that word. Now that words means something else. Everything I just read is what they systemic injustices, particularly regarding race, gender, and sexual orientation. Woke people never was talking about sexual orientation unless they was trying to imprint that in the Black community on a negative way. It was all about knowing what was happening in your community, the positivity of what we needed to do, and understanding what was happening to us. That was being woke. Now woke, they didn't hijack that word to mean all of this uh you know homosexuality and transgender and all the other races and so that is something that they took, so now they could fight against the word woke. Now if you're woke, that means this other luggage comes with it. And this is something that they do. These are tactics that I'm talking about that they use. They redefine it. They hijack the word, and they do it to fit their agenda. So now being woke is a negative thing as far as they're concerned. And a lot of us may be concerned also because they hijacked it. Another thing that they hijacked was DEI. And I know on my comments, um, in the comments, I know one person commented. I didn't even get to see the poll. I don't know how to look at the poll. I created a poll and I don't know if it's even showing up or whatever. But one person said, I know Teresa, I appreciate Sakina. Walaikum assalam, sister Lade Bishop. She said, welcome back. I appreciate that. Teresa Lewis, she said, absolutely not a DEI hire. And I'm going to say this. I said the same thing back when Charlie Kirk got killed, and a guy at my job, he's a big conservative type, pro-Trump, all this stuff like that. And I was talking about DEI, and I was talking about a lot of things being racist that Charlie Kirk was saying, and the guy was like, how? And I was telling him, I said, well, the DEI thing. I say the comment that he made, he said, when because of DEI hires, when I see a Black pilot, I think, is he really qualified? And I said, and I submitted to the guy, the people that benefited the most from DEI was white women. And so he looked it up. He did the Siri thing, Siri, who benefits most, and we looked it up, statistics. They'll tell you white women benefited more. And I told him, I say, why did Charlie Kirk not say, when I see a woman pilot, a white woman pilot, I'm thinking, is she qualified? Because that doesn't fit the agenda. And what I just said about what they did when they hijack words for their agenda, like they did with woke, with diversity, equity, and inclusion, now means to them, or to a lot of people, is that you are someone unqualified, undeserving of your position, and only got it because of your race or your sexual orientation or whatever. That you are someone that has taken somebody else's job that is more qualified, and you only got it because they're trying to a quota. And that guy at the time, he said, well, why are you so, up in arms about this? He said, do you consider yourself a DEI hire? I said, no. Now that's in the heat of the moment. Looking back at it, the same guy, he's been in the company longer than I have. And he's a Hispanic guy. And he talks about when he first got in the company, he said, it was no Blacks and no Hispanics. Now he's Hispanic, like I said. He said it was all white guys. So they started hiring us. And I said, I thought about that. And am I a DEI hire? I'm thinking differently, because what diversity, equity, and inclusion is about is them stopping the way America was some decades back, not long ago where you didn't get hired based on your abilities, you got hired based on being white. If I turned in an application, if they saw I was black, they would not hire me. They would put my application to the side. And now that I've thought about it, this has happened to me when I was coming out of when I was not high school, but I was going to A&M Extension in San Antonio. I was ahead of my class. I was in a robotics class. And I was so ahead that they told me to stop and start tutoring the other kids to help them catch up. And I remember I had to tutor this white dude. I ain't gonna say little white dude. It was a white guy. And I was tutoring him. I was tutoring my Asian friend, and I was helping them with the modules to get through. And what was happening is we went looking for jobs during our courses. And I went to a place to get a job. And I asked them, were they hiring? And they was like, no. I was like, okay, thank you. And I was going on. Then this white guy that I was helping, the tutor to bring along, he told me like, yeah, man, I got a job. I'm like, where'd you get a job at? The same place that I went to. And as soon as I walked in the door and I asked them if they was hired, they wouldn't even take my application. They wouldn't give me an application. He went like 2 days later. They gave him an application, called him back, and told him that he could start. Because that's how it was in this country with no accountability. We used to say you have to be twice as good as a white person to get hired. Like they absolutely have to need you. If you was just better qualified, you wouldn't get looked at. The company that I was in, that this guy was in before me, he was talking about how it was all white people. And when the Mexicans started getting hired, they was giving them dirty looks and wasn't helping them because they were not used to having other people outside of being white men in the company. So what happened was DEI happened. So now they have to start hiring us based on not our race, but based on our abilities and our skill set, that they can't just say no or throw us in the trash, throw our applications in the trash. That's what diversity means. Like, tell me why there's no diversity in your job place. Why y'all don't have women there? You gonna tell me it's no qualified women? Okay, well, we're gonna send qualified women there. The equity part is to make up, justify, it's justice. It's not equality. It's just justifying what was done to us in the past because we have not been given jobs for decades. Same thing with women. They were not given jobs based on their sex. Black people were not given jobs based on their race. And they're trying to make up for that by now hiring more of us because they're saying, you know what, this was not right. This is so if you look at this administration, they are trying to erase all of the history of Black people. They're trying to they're trying to dismantle museums. They're trying to take away Black history that acknowledges and educates people off of not only them, but us on what we have achieved. They're trying to erase that. And they're also trying to erase diversity in the workplace by saying that DEI is for people that is not qualified. So now even we say that when Trump put someone in office and take someone out, that a person of color that was more qualified, and he put somebody in there that has hardly no qualifications, we'll say this is a DEI hire. No, it's not a DEI hire. DEI is about diversity. He don't want diversity. This person is being put in there because we have bought into the DEI, meaning unqualified. And then that reflects on us. DEI has nothing to do with you being qualified. You can't be a pilot unless you're qualified and you passed the test and you got the credentials to be a pilot. Now what they have to do is look at those Black pilots that they used to refuse to hire. So being a DEI hire is a slap on this nation saying that we got to make up for being racist. But now we got a negative outlook on what DEI means because they have hijacked and redefined the words. DEI means, yes, I am diverse. I am more diverse than what you're used to or what you want. But damn it, I'm qualified. So you need to look at me and you need to hire me. And that's what has been going on. And this is something that they didn't want to go on, or this group or this crop of MAGAs and all these things like that. They don't want that. So what they do, they paint a picture that makes it more friendly for them to have that conversation about. So when I reflected on, I'm like, yeah, I am a DEI hire. Because damn it, they wasn't hiring us before. And I know it ain't got nothing to do with whether in it, because I am qualified. And even though I was qualified, they wasn't hiring us before based on our race, based on your sexuality. And they've included that, and based on, like I say, women, white women benefited the most because many of them was qualified for jobs, but they didn't want to hire them anyway. They believed a woman should be at home, whether she was qualified or not. So that's a different way of looking at being DEI. And this is what made me sit back and say, you know what? I am a DEI hire because this nation, this history was not hiring black people that was qualified to do the job. And black or women that wasn't qualified, that was qualified to do the job. They wasn't hiring us. And now this is forcing them to hire qualified. DEI doesn't mean that I don't know my job. I will put myself, uh, as a technician in the company I'm in, anybody that's in my group, I will put my frame of mind on troubleshooting and everything like that alongside any of them that's been doing this for much longer. So much so that this same person that said these things asked me questions about what you think we should do next when we're both out on the job together. And I've seen this when we go out as technicians and I'm the only black person there, and I've seen construction crews, both of me, a couple of technicians show up, then they'll go to who they think is the boss. And actually the one you should be talking to is the sharp one, because I'm the one that he's talking to also. What you think we should do? Where you think we should start at? Well, I think this, and this. And you could tell me what you think, and then you tell me which one make more sense. I acquiesce if I say, you know what, you're right. But what it is, this guy asked me, and then they're talking to him over me because they're thinking the same thing. I'm not qualified to be the one that they need to talk to. So when you're at your job and you kicking ass at your job and you're a person of color or you're a woman or whatever, don't believe that DEI hiring is a bad thing because they have changed that definition. DEI hiring is a bad thing about America because that's saying that they was not hiring us at first and we were damn sure more qualified than a lot of them. They didn't flip the script on us. So I look at myself and I remember what I told him when I said, hell no, I'm not a DEI hire. He's like, what you worried about? But hell yeah, I am. Because damn it, I'm qualified. And you look at what the word inclusion, what is it to be DEI? Diverse, equity, which means justice, and inclusion. Y'all need to include us because y'all was not including us. And I appreciate everyone that showed up. I appreciate the comments. I'm gonna read a comment from Teresa. She said, I read what was being done now in interviews is asking what would you to question and stealing ideas of interview candidates and not hiring the person. And I probably I don't know what you really meant, asking what you to question and stealing ideas of the interviewer candidates. Oh, I think you're saying like they steal the ideas. What would you do in certain circumstances? And they steal those ideas of the people they're interviewing. That's a great point. And I'm gonna say this. This goes along with the woke thing. In the Matrix, the movie, they were waking them up from being in the matrix. They had a, hey, I'm gonna tell you this. You could take this pill, you could take this pill. Do you want to know? Or do you want to go back to sleep and be used by the system? That's what woke. Now, the Matrix was written by a black person, a black woman. They stole her work. And in the same thing Teresa was talking about, it was a scientific periodical that these people that stole the Matrix and the Terminator from the same woman, she created both. They asked them to write in a story. It was a competition. This black woman submitted her work and they took it and stole it because it was so damn good. I don't even know if she won the competition, but they stole it, created the movie, The Terminator and The Matrix. Both of them is talking about the machines in the future. If you draw the connection, the Terminator is about coming back to kill the lineage of a person that does something in the future against the machine and help the people rebel. The Matrix is about being in that matrix where the machines control anybody and trying to stop the savior of the people, the one. And that's why being woke was a thing for us. You're waking up and you're seeing the system for what it is. And also, like Teresa was saying, that's how those movies was taken from the lady that submitted it. They will ask you things in an interview on situation wise, and they'll steal the information that you give them. So they're using the people that's applying. But anyway, that's what I wanted to get into. I appreciate everyone that that was able to tune in, and I hope y'all appreciated the show. And hopefully I have a better show for y'all next week. Kevin Lewis on the Blueprint. Peace.